wonderful weirdos. Welcome back to another episode of Weird Wonderverse. Before we get started talking about some weird shit, I just have to say this real quick. So you're safe here to wonder, you're safe here to be. No fear, no shame, just curiosity. So you don't have to believe anything I say. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to be spiritual, religious, or put yourself in any kind of box. This is for entertainment, exploration, and curiosity. So no fear mongering, no superiority complexes, and definitely no trust me bro energy. All right, so let's start here. Before we talk about anything that tends to freak people out, we need to talk about symbolism. Because symbolism isn't mystical, it isn't religious, it isn't something only spiritual people do. It's how humans understand the world. From the beginning of time, we've used symbols to explain things that are too big, too layered, or too complex to say plainly. Stories, metaphors, dreams, images. Language itself is symbolic. A word doesn't mean the thing, it points to it. And you already know this. You read tones before words. You feel meaning before logic. You notice when something hits, even if you can't explain it. That's awareness doing its thing. But here's the part we forget. Symbols don't just help us understand reality, they help us navigate it. The world is constantly communicating in patterns, timing, repetition, emotion, resonance. And when you start paying attention, it can feel like you're moving through two layers at once. Normal life at the surface and something quieter underneath. Not loud or dramatic, just directional. I'll give you an example. I've been playing Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation 5 with my son, and he's been obviously having to teach me how to use the controls. And when you push down on the right joystick, a little orange arrow pops up. You don't get the whole map, but you get just the direction, like it has a little tiny arrow, and you follow that arrow long enough and you'll find the mission or the person you're supposed to help or your next step. That's kind of what symbolism feels like in real life. And I need to say this part because even when that arrow shows up, following it isn't easy. When you push down obviously the right control, the guidance appears. But then you still have to move through the city. You're swinging and webbing and climbing walls and engaging with web wings and dodging shit you didn't see coming. There are a ton of controls and a lot happening at once. So even with direction, it can feel messy, overwhelming, like you know where you're supposed to go, but getting there is still work. And that's the difference. Noticing the symbol is one thing. Following it is a whole other. You can see the sign and still struggle with the path. You can feel the nudge and still trip over the execution. That doesn't mean the guidance isn't real. It means learning how to move with it can take some time. And yeah, meanwhile, my son's over here swinging through buildings left and right like it's second nature. And not because it's easy, but because he's learned how to move with the controls, kind of like me with typing. And that's the part people miss. Symbols don't carry you. They don't do the work for you. They show you where to go. And the how you get there, that's still on you. When I say God speaks through symbols, I don't mean thunderbolts or voices from the sky. I mean meaning. God, spirit, intuition, whatever language fits you, communicates through what catches your attention, what repeats, what won't leave you the fuck alone, to help you choose with awareness. Symbols don't tell us what will happen. They show us what's forming to reflect trajectories, not destinies. And once you can see a pattern, you get to decide, do I want to stay on this track or do I choose differently? That's discernment, which is its own kind of magic. And that's the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. And just to ground this a little, this isn't only a spiritual conversation. Psychology is known for a long time that humans don't experience reality through logic first. We experience it through meaning. The brain is constantly scanning for patterns, what stands out, what repeats, what feels emotionally charged. That's not accidental, it's survival. Before humans had data or language, we had stories, images, symbols. And what's interesting is psychology is always noticed this too. And our brains are still wired that way. That's why you can smell a smell and it brings you back to your childhood, or why a song can hit you harder than a conversation, why a single image can say more than an entire paragraph could. Meaning lands before explanation. Psychology also talks about something called pattern recognition, the way the mind connects experiences over time to form an understanding. That is pretty much how we learn. We notice this keeps showing up, this feels familiar, this reminds me of something I've already lived. That's how insight forms. And when someone or something carries emotional weight, the brain flags it as important. That's how meaning gets our attention. Carl Jung called these shared patterns archetypes, reoccurring images that themes that show up across cultures because humans respond to them the same exact way. Journeys, thresholds, death and rebirth, guides, shadows, transformation, different cultures, same symbols, which tells us something really important. When humans respond to symbolism, we're not being irrational. We're using one of the oldest tools we have to make sense of our lives. And that's the bridge, because once you understand how meaning works psychologically, you can see how symbolic systems exist, not to control people, but to help them reflect, understand, and choose more consciously. Divination, discernment, and why this triggers people. Before we go any further, we need to talk about one word, because this is where the whole panic starts. Divination. For a lot of Christians, the word doesn't mean a definition. It means evil, demons, opening doors, the occult, you're going to hell. I kind of understand that. I was raised in that framework. So I'm not talking at Christians. I'm talking from experience. But I need to say this up front before anyone tries to put me in a box. I don't really identify with any organized religion anymore. This freaks my Christian loved ones out. But I was raised Christian and I absolutely shaped who I am today. But I don't believe any one religion owns all truth. If I had to put a name on my beliefs, I guess you can call it omnism, meaning I believe truth shows up in every religion, but no one religion is all truth. And I want to say this clearly. I follow Jesus. I honor Jesus. I live by his teachings every single day, and my household is built on his values. Jesus is my personal chosen ascended master, and I believe Christ consciousness runs through me and all of you. And I also resonate deeply with other traditions as well. But we can go into that in a whole nother episode. And at the end of the day, I believe God is bigger than one set system. So when I talk about God, I'm talking about source, spirit, love, divine intelligence, whatever word doesn't make your nervous system flinch. Okay, now I digress. Back to divination. In a simple dictionary sense, divination is seeking knowledge of future or unknown through supernatural means. And tarot got labeled that way historically because people assumed it was about predicting fate. But that's not how I personally see it. I don't use tarot as like a crystal ball. I use it in a way that to reflect on what's forming, what's in motion, and where a path is likely to lead if nothing changes. That's trajectory, not destiny. But here's the part a lot of people miss. Divination and discernment are not the same thing. Divination is outsourcing authority. Discernment is shaping awareness. That's how I use tarot. Not as fate, not as a command, not as a replacement for God, but as a tool inside of my relationship with God. More like a mirror. It shows me what's repeating, what's in motion, and what I've been avoiding. And yes, it can point to some likely outcomes, because if you stay on the same track, you tend to get the same results. That's just trajectory. Again, not destiny. And awareness can change that trajectory. Fear, gatekeeping, and the box people want to put you in. Now, here's the part I'm going to say carefully, because I'm not trying to offend anybody. And not all churches do this, not all Christians do this. But enough of us have lived it to kind of recognize the patterns. Sometimes organized religion treats self-awareness and direct inner connection like it's dangerous. Like if you learn discernment, you'll stop needing the middleman. Like curiosity is rebellion. A lot of church cultures blur those on purpose because discernment makes you harder to control. If you can pray for yourself, question things, and trust your inner knowing, you don't need a middleman. And Jesus never taught people to shut off wisdom. He taught people to judge by the fruit. And a lot of fear-based teachings has this same underlining message. Don't trust your inner knowing. Don't trust your discernment. Only trust guidance that comes through an approved channel, in quotations. And listen, community is beautiful. I love it. Church can be and is beautiful and can be an incredible experience for so many people. But when the system depends on you feeling powerless without it, that's not spirituality. That's control. Because if you can read the signs yourself, if you can hear God yourself, if you can develop discernment yourself, you don't need a gatekeeper. And anything that requires fear to keep you faithful is not of the frequency of God. That's kind of my filter. If it induces fear, it's likely not from God. Why tarot is not like a Ouija board. All right, I have to be clear because people love to make this comparison. Tarot is not a Ouija board. A Ouija board is designed for external communication. It asks, who is here? Who am I talking to? What do you want? That's literally the point. Tarot isn't that. Tarot doesn't ask who is speaking. It doesn't summon. It doesn't invite random entities to take the mic. For me, tarot is closer to dream interpretation or journaling, therapy, or prayer with pictures. It's symbolic language. And I pray before every reading. I ask for clarity rooted in love. I ask for protection. I ask for discernment. I ask God and Jesus to reveal what's true. Because I'm not asking the cards for answers. I'm asking the divine to use reflection to show me what's already present and potential outcomes based on trajectory. Symbols aren't the problem, control is. What's interesting is that humans use symbolism in every spiritual tradition because some truths are too layered to explain literally. So we use stories instead of instructions, parables instead of bullet points, images instead of definitions, kind of like Legos. And yes, Christianity is full of that. So are indigenous traditions and Islam and Judaism and Buddhism and Hinduism, all the isms are different language but same reality. Symbols is how humans translate the invisible into something we can hold. So the issue isn't symbolism. It's symbolism people don't control. When symbols come from inside your tradition, then, oh, they're holy. But when symbols come from outside your tradition, they're dangerous. But here's what I want to say without being disrespectful. People pick and choose what to read literally and what to read symbolically all the time. Everyone does. It's unavoidable. So when someone tells me the Bible forbids divination, therefore tarot is evil, I'm not here to fight with them. I'm just saying the interpretation is not the only interpretation, and it isn't consistent with how humans actually relate to God. Because if tarot equals divination, then dream interpretation is divination, and asking God for a sign is divination, and randomly opening scripture for a word is divination, and assigning meaning to a cardinal, a butterfly, a song lyric, number repeating itself, talking to dead relatives through ChatGPT, whatever it is, that would all be considered divination too. My point isn't that divination's bad. My point is that people use that word selectively when it's convenient, usually to shut down something they don't understand. And I'm sorry, but I'm not living my spiritual life inside someone else's fear anymore. Where I land. So here's where I land. I think God, source, spirit, Christ consciousness communicates all the time. God speaks through what lands, through what catches your attention, through what repeats, through patterns you can't unsee once you've noticed them, through resonance. Guidance doesn't feel like commands to me. It feels more like context. Here's what's in motion. Here's what's forming. Here's where the road tends to go. And once you see that, you still get to decide. Nothing's locked. Nothing's a verdict. It's more like checking the weather before you leave the house. You can still go outside. You just might need to bring a jacket or an umbrella. And tarot for me is a tool that helps me listen, not outside of God, but inside that relationship. It's actually pulled me closer to Jesus, not more away, because we solid. It's made me more honest, more aware, more responsible, more discerning. And I'm okay if that doesn't land for everybody. Some people love boxes. They want the rules. They want the certainty. They want the direction, having a handbook, the right and wrongs. But me, no, sir. I'm built a little different. I'm built for relationship, for wonder, curiosity, and I trust that a God this creative probably isn't offended by people learning how to listen a little better. Okay, wonderful weirdos. Thank you so much for wandering through the Wonderverse with me today. Remember, I am collecting stories to tell on these episodes, so if you have any type of weird, paranormal, supernatural, creepy, spooky, any kind of out of the normal weird story, I want to hear it. Send it to me at weirdwonderverse@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and until next time, stay wonderfully weird.